Survivor's ready.
If anybody has a hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, now would be the time to do so.
The queen stays queen.
You said rustle feathers.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to calamity. We have ripe bananas all the time.
Dude, my prize isn't even $1 million. My prize was that I fell in love in this game. Love at first sight. Her name is Candace.
You officially go down as the dumbest survivor ever.
Welcome to Not Game, All Personal. Hey, we are a Survivor podcast here, talk about all things Survivor, more specifically the events of this past week. I'm Nathan. This is Tony. How's it going, Tony?
Hey, it's going well. It's going well. Bright and early this morning, huh?
Yes. Is this officially the earliest we've ever recorded a podcast?
By a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything close.
We've done the morning before. We've even done a couple. There was like once or twice. I feel like we did like a Saturday morning. Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, maybe. That sounds right.
Not this early, but
I don't think that was like an episode review though. That was just like, let's record some of our like top rankings or whatever.
yeah, we're acting like it's 7:30 local time. I don't know. Is that
Nathan, I wake up at like 8:30 for work every day. I don't wake up this early.
Oh, I mean, same. This is a tad earlier than my, but I'm just saying we're complaining as if this is insane. I'd say the biggest part of this is the turnaround because I didn't watch the episode live, so I think we were both just refreshing Paramount Plus last night, seeing how quick they would upload it, and it was maybe 11:45. I was gonna text you, but then I didn't because I thought I'm like, they're not uploading. He's probably in bed by now. I should have because I was just literally refreshing, watching other stuff, waiting for it to post. So I think the turnaround of like watching the episode straight to bed, straight to this is gonna be interesting. Hopefully we got it all.
Yeah, hopefully we didn't just like dream about the season and make up stuff in our heads overnight.
That could be interesting. But yes, we do got an episode to discuss. I'll say off the bat, this was one of the more straightforward episodes that we've gotten this season, especially considering the past few weeks. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think that was like my initial reaction. I was like, oh, okay, we just got a typical tribal council, kind of straightforward. We know the two people that are up for grabs. There's no crazy blowout. There's nothing like, oh my gosh, this blind side. It felt fairly straightforward. So I think I was a little spoiled with the past 3 or 4 weeks. Like, not saying this episode was bad, but it was like, okay, this is probably typical Survivor episode.
Yeah, it was a little bit more back to the basics, but even in that, like, all of the different conversations they showed us, I think was super interesting to see basically Charlie's decision process that whole way.
Yeah.
And that's really what it ultimately comes down to is it was Charlie's decision to whether or not he was going to take a shot now or later. Should we just dive right into it?
Let's dive into it because I think that was the main storyline of this entire episode was Charlie's narration through the entire game. That's how it felt from beginning to end, which I think we've talked about. Like, this is what I wanted because Charlie and Maria have been running this game for weeks, pretty much the entire game, but yet I feel like we have seen very little from them, from their perspective of like their decision making. And so I think even as early as last week I mentioned like I want to hear from them. Like, are they that strong? Like, do they have these thoughts? And I think we got that this episode. I think Charlie made it very clear where he's at, what he's thinking. And so I loved every moment of just hearing him logically talk through pretty much every single player.
And so I told you before we recorded, it was frustrating because in my head, as I'm watching it, this feels like on a golden platter, your opportunity to take a shot, make a move, make a decision. And I think he could have gotten away with it and been fine and created a scenario where even Maria was okay with him taking that shot. But he just chose not to and chose to sit back. And when I look at the numbers and see that there's 6 people left and there's 2 people that he wants to get rid of before final tribal, like that just seems so much more risky to me to be able to get rid of both of them before that point. And so like that, as I was watching it, I was like, you got to take a shot at some point. And then if he took out Q, then he could rally some people to get rid of Liz or Venus at that point or something. You know what I mean? Like it was very frustrating, but it might not be wrong. Like it could work out fine and he could win the game. This could be like his coming out party and he win the game because he showed restraint. I would have taken that shot every single time at that point.
Yeah, I think I'm on the fence. I'm not sure I'm decided, and I think maybe that's just me being a baby and not wanting to commit until I see the outcome. And I'm sure once I see how he ends this season, I'll have a more definitive answer on whether or not this was good. Is that fair for me to wait to see if he wins or not?
It
To
is.
have a
It's a
take?
little boring in a take
right.
world, and when we're like, I understand, yeah, that it might just work out perfectly and he wins easily. I'm still mad at it.
No, I think no.
Standing on principle, and you're like, oh, we'll see what happens.
I think, but like, I truly, I see both sides, and I think I'm a little more disappointed just because I have been a Venus fan most of this season, and I think it is disappointing to see her go out. Uh, but I'm also a new Q fan as of the past couple of weeks, so I think either way, on a personal level, I would have felt a loss.
Yeah.
Strategically, but I do see both sides because I think it is more just like of a numbers game as far as like, because he mentioned right before Tribal is like, who is gonna still work with me after I blindside them? That's the question. And from the votes, it looks like nobody was blindsided. There was one vote for Kenzie coming from Ben, which I'm assuming was just a safety net in case there
Yep.
was something played, and then it wasn't Q as the backup, which I'm very curious to hear Kenzie's reaction to that. That's not exactly ideal to be the backup plan. But everyone else voted for Venus, so it doesn't feel like Charlie made any waves with this, which I think if he blindsided Q, he would have been blindsiding Maria and Ben as well. So I think to me it makes sense where it's like Maria and Ben might be harder to bring back, especially because you've been working with them for so long, and now you blindside them, as opposed to like, let's say he has to blindside Liz and Kenzie. That's not as big of a deal because next week they're still going to be in the same position and need you, whereas Maria and Ben might not feel that way. So I think like that's where my mind went, where I'm like, okay, I think this move makes sense. But at the same time, I mean, every single week we're saying the same thing about Q. It's like, we'll worry about him next week. We'll worry about him next week. And I think like if Maria is viewing him as like someone she wants to take to the end, then you're running out of weeks where you have numbers to do that.
Yeah, I think I assume that Charlie just ended up telling Liz and Kenzie like, "Hey, I'm not doing it," and they were just
Yeah.
like, "All right, fall in line, whatever."
Right.
Be on the right side of the vote because then at the very least you can say that okay, we were back on track this week. I think there's a world where he can have a conversation with Maria and say, "Hey, everybody else really, really feels some type of way about you and Q, and they're gonna want to take like they want to take a shot take a shot at Q so it weakens you and you seem like less of a threat could be valuable to her, especially down this stretch." And that just seems logical to me. And I guess the Sega 3 are still the big threat, and so Maria is still a big issue. So maybe that wouldn't fix it for her, but getting rid of Q, like they were worried about those, everybody was worried about those two. And then Charlie taking that shot at that point, I think would have been really good. And then, yeah, I think it just could have worked. Ben, when he was talking about how he just wanted Venus out because she was annoying, basically, I was like, you can't play this game. And his excuse was she's chaotic. She's not. She hasn't decided anything. Like you can't.
Yeah.
She just really hasn't. And so why would you get rid of somebody who is just kind of annoying to deal with as opposed to somebody who's actually a threat, who he mentioned that Q is a threat?
Well,
I don't know.
I
It just
had the take weeks ago, which has come more true than ever, that Q is literally the the person, the thing that they are accusing Venus of being, like in almost every aspect at this point.
oh yeah, absolutely.
And
The
so I
last few
just
weeks not as much, but yes, he has that in him, absolutely.
but like, what has Venus done the past couple weeks? You know, like Hunter told her about his idol, and she told people, but like
Hmm.
she's not like she wasn't working. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't. I was a little frustrated in Ben's comments, and I think just like again, like are we still doing this? Like pinning Venus as like this chaotic, horrible person you can't trust because like there have been votes where she pointed out at tribal council there have been votes where she has stuck with the plan. She has kept a secret. Like they're using very few examples to like paint her as this person when like you have actual chaotic people who actually pose a threat. Like wow,
Who you're working with
she
actively.
kind of came in second in this immunity challenge. She's a threat.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, let's ignore the person that's won twice and the person who's like a professional athlete here. Like, it's ridiculous how like, but it's the game and that's what you got to do. But I refuse to accept that she is like this chaotic person that had to be dealt with.
Perception is reality, and that's just how they're going to operate. And you always just have to have an excuse for what you want to do or what you think is best for your game.
Right. Yep.
I think for anybody, like I think Maria and Q, well, maybe I don't know. I feel like Charlie's not a big threat because people don't seem worried about him right now, which makes me wonder how he's perceived generally. I feel like it is Maria and Q who are the big threats.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're
Yeah.
hoping that they don't win the immunities at the right time in the next three eliminations, that they make it through or that you can get rid of them, which is possible and probably will happen. I think that's pretty likely. We always lose a big threat right at the end, but I don't know. I think Charlie could have made a big move there. It wouldn't have been his move necessarily because somebody else drove it and convinced him. He could have framed it that way even, but
Yeah, well, I think going back to when you mentioned, like, Charlie could have warned Maria, he could have gotten her on board. I think, i- in my opinion, what I learned from last night is I don't know if that's what Charlie wants to do is include Maria in on all
no.
this.
And that's a fair point.
I think we are leading up to him making some sort of move on her beyond just getting Q out. And I think that might be like the biggest part of this that was his reasoning is that, like, it's too soon for him because he still wants those threats. Because I think like if Maria is weakened, let's say Q gets out, is she that much of a threat anymore? Um, I think that like significantly drops her threat level, and then you have people looking like, oh, it's Charlie and Maria, and so I do think that
Yeah.
was a big part of his thinking, where like they are major shields and nobody's looking at him right now, and he has this in with Kenzie and Liz that they don't have and they'll never have.
Hmm.
I mean, we can talk about the reward, the choosing of the reward participants this week, but that like it's just thing after thing is piling on, and he has this outlet where he is in the middle. So it's like I think getting rid of Q would have eliminated that middle in a large way.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think based on like you kind of made me think, yeah, he's definitely saving that shot. I think he's got Jesse's playbook a little bit where he wants the shot to be taking out Maria. He doesn't want to go against her and then have to gain her trust back or anything. He wants to take the shot at her, I think. And will that lose him a vote? Will she respect it? I think that'll lose him a vote, honestly, at Final Tribal, but that's the flashier move, and I think everybody in the jury would respect that because there's a lot of gamers in the jury, and I think maybe that's what he's going for.
Yeah, it could be. I think it's hard to tell right now. I do. Again, very grateful we saw Charlie's perspective last night for what
Mhm.
seems like the first time on a lot of issues. But I do want to hear more from Maria. Like, is Maria having these thoughts as well against Charlie? Because we haven't seen anything to indicate that. And I do want to hear her take more on working with Q, because I think she is making it seem like Q's a number right now. Not yet. Next week. Like, does she actually think there's a next week, or is she viewing Q as someone she wants to sit in the final three with? Because I think that would also determine a lot of like, is there some more urgency that needs to take place for getting Q out right now? Um, Yeah, and that I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I think right now, I think she's the front runner. Like, if the game ended right now and they did jury right now, I think she has the best case. She has the most to hang her hat on, and she is running the show. And so she's in a very comfortable spot, and I don't think she's scared of going to the final with Q and Charlie, which is why you see Charlie kind of scrambling. Like, okay, they're not scrambling yet, but like you can see the pressure's on, and he feels that pressure,
Mm-hmm.
and he's ready to do what needs to be done to remove
Yeah.
that threat or remove that advantage that she has currently.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. There's a lot. There's a lot there. But I'm excited. I like the direction that this is going. I like that he's having these thoughts. I like that we get to see the inside of it all, to see the thought process and see how this could play out. Because I think, if anything, this week didn't really change a whole lot of the dynamics with getting Venus out.
Mhm.
So I think, like, next week it's going to be a lot of the same conversations, and has been for weeks, of like, do we get Q out? So I'm fascinated to see, yeah, how that plays out. Let's talk a little about the fallout from last week,
Okay.
because it was, I don't know. I think we've talked a lot about this new era of, like, needing to claim a move, right? And, like,
Mm-hmm.
this is my move. Like, no one else can, like, where does the credit go to if it has to be one person? And I think it was interesting, again, hearing from Charlie, but, like, he kind of picked up on that and made sure that, like, it was Maria that got full credit. And even Maria,
Mhm.
like, wanted full credit. Like, I think everyone was acknowledging, like, wow, Maria was the one to do this. And so I don't know. I don't really have, I guess, too many more thoughts on that, but it is fascinating to see them, like, acknowledge that portion of the game where it's like, this is important to us, we value this, but then also to see Charlie kind of use that to manipulate perception a little bit to, like, paint a bigger target on Maria.
Oh, absolutely. Like being able to, yeah, recognize it and then also just be like, "Hey, that wasn't me. Like I was a part of that, but she was the one that made that decision." I think is super smart at this point. It really lowers his threat level and keeps him. I think people see him as this young guy that like has a good head for the game, like Kenzie has said. Like he knows what he's doing, but they don't have the confidence that he's really running things or can make the big decisions in the right moments maybe. And he's capitalizing off that, which is awesome. I mean, it's fun to see. Maria, yeah, really wanted that move, and I would say it was too early to really claim a move because now she's that massive threat, and I think her getting to final three is going to be a real big challenge, and I think that's why she's just trying to keep Q around because he's delusional enough to think that he has a shot either way.
Well, that's the question I have. Do you think, like, my assumption right now is that Q's pretty much going to be loyal to her as long
Mm-hmm.
as she's in the game? I don't think there's any way to get him away from her. Would you agree with that? Like, who else in this game right now has the ability to work with him, or at least to convince him to vote with them? I think it's almost solely Maria, which makes sense why she wants
Yeah.
to keep him.
Yeah, I would agree because like there's always been that little beef between him and Kenzie. Liz and him obviously have an issue, and we just haven't seen Charlie and Ben engaging with him enough for it to be of anything of value. And so he's quite literally like if Maria views him as everybody hates him and he's never going to get votes at the end, and he's a guaranteed vote for me, you got to keep him around. Now, there's the chance that knowing Q, he might flip on her and try to take that shot as well and claim the move of taking out Maria at the end. And that'll be good move for him too. I think that at that point it'll be tough to deny his game and his like ability to stick around and survive as long as he has. But for now, and most likely she can just keep him as her I was gonna say lapdog. I don't like that. As like just a vote and somebody just
Yeah.
her Robin to her Batman. Maybe I feel like he's taken Charlie's spot in some ways.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing because I think like she meets up with Charlie to talk strategy, but then she meets up with Q to talk like execution in a lot of ways. And it is, yeah, in some ways it's like here I have this person that like maybe in some ways is the opposite of my archetype, right? Like was she the oldest contestant on this season? I think she was, right? I'm looking at real
Yeah,
quick. Yeah, so
that
she's
sounds right.
which is not very old at 47. But that's the point we're at with reality TV now. So she's the oldest person on this season. She's a mom. And then she picks like this younger guy who is more that archetype who could be good at challenges, probably strategic, And so like I think if you do replace him with just another person that is a different archetype, like Q and Charlie aren't the same, but like still opposite of what you are in many ways. But then this person is far more desperate. So I think that's like the key where it's like Charlie has options, Q does not. So I think it makes sense for her to more kind of go that direction. But yet at the same time, we haven't seen anything to indicate that she would turn on Charlie. But I think that would be fascinating if she ever decides to, realizing that like, wait, I replaced him and I still have the power, but now I'm more secure in having this better resume than Q has.
Yeah, I don't. They just haven't shown us her wanting Charlie out. I feel like maybe at final 3 or final 4 or something, she would be like, "I'm gonna throw you in fire." I think that's what it would look like if she did. But she's just so secure where she's at, and she's pulling in Q because he's just so much more solid. What did you think of Maria's decisions for reward?
Pretty baffling, I'll be honest.
It was so bad, man. Like
I think it was Venus that
Venus was right.
described it. Yeah, I think at Tribal she was the one that said like it's not so much of who you picked, but it was like your logic for getting there. Like
she said,
you
who
should have
hasn't
just
eaten
said
the
it.
most, and then you just gave it to Q, who has eaten the most.
Yes, that, and she still hasn't explained that. I think that's the thing. Like people outright said that, and she's still like not explaining what she meant or defending. She's still rolling with it, which I think like that is like the worst thing you could do. I think you either are just brutal about it. Like I almost think Q was in a better position last week with just being ruthless than you are with like pretending, because like she had this like the worst middle ground of like pretending that she wanted to care about them, but then actively showing that she didn't, and then playing it off as like, well, it was rock, paper, scissors, wasn't my call, nothing I can do. It was like there was something you could do.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, Jeff told me I had to do rock, paper, scissors. No, you made that decision because you couldn't make the decision. Like that makes me respect you less as a player. The fact that you're not able to just make a decision and stand on it. You were given an out by Charlie that you didn't have to pick him. Like there's people who are trying to give it to you on a silver platter, and yet you take forever and make the decisions that she made. I mean, maybe there's something to, could Liz have even eaten it? It was pizza. Like she's gluten free, right? That's the big thing.
Jeff said it was gluten free. He did say
that.
Oh,
did he?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that.
Yeah, no, fully up for grabs.
She probably hated that. Yeah, I don't think it was ever going to be Charlie, or I don't think it was ever going to be Kenzie or Venus, even though she kind of pretended that it was going to be. I think she was begging for an out, begging for somebody to be like, just take this person. And nobody would give it to her because they're like, you have to make this decision. And she fumbled it. And they did a decent job at Tribal kind of going at Venus and making her seem ridiculous, even though what she said was completely valid and completely fair. And nobody was going to help her out because they were all voting for her. So it didn't matter at that point.
Yeah. No, it just was like, I don't know, kind of infuriating, especially from the perspective of like, this is a horrible game move in every aspect. Like, there's nothing to gain here. You are showing your cards. Your logic doesn't make sense. It's coming across like, I don't know. So like, I just there's part of me that like wanted to see Q go home just to kind of show her a lesson there. It's like, do you see what you're doing?
Yeah.
Like her logic was that Liz got that rice and she's been sharing it with Venus. That was her logic. Ignoring the fact that like Q is laughing. He's like, I just had Applebee's. I shouldn't be here. Like the fact that he is acknowledging that you messed up when it comes to choosing a reward after his whole thing last week of choosing a reward, like, I don't know. So I hope it comes back to bite her, because I think Carmen would be
I do too.
especially sweet here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially after you get my girl Venus. Not cool. Not cool at all.
I'm pissed. Just a quick note. I really liked this variation of the like snake puzzle. Like I thought that was a fun new way to do it. Nobody had ever done anything like that. It took a while and was like definitely a big equalizer at the end of that challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was very fun. Yeah, and like everyone was on it at the end. A couple people were very close. Venus especially. I think whenever you see a challenge like this where someone who has been historically not great at challenges in their season have like the fact that it was between Maria and Venus, two people that have never gone head to head, like, I think that shows like, okay, this was a very balanced challenge, especially after we've had weeks. I think it was like 3 weeks in a row of what type of challenges? It's too early to think of this. We have to last a long time. Endurance. That's
Endurance.
the word.
I was so confused what you were looking for. I was like,
I couldn't think of the word endurance. Yeah, it was nice to get a challenge that everyone could compete in, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like the challenges have been super balanced. Like Charlie's 1-2, Maria's 1-2, Kenzie's 1-1, Hunter 1-1. Like it's been pretty balanced across the board.
Wait, Maria's 1-2?
The winners.
That
was her second one. It was the week where 2 people got them.
Oh, that's correct. Yes, you're right. Wow. Oh, get her out of there. What a threat.
I think they're finally shifting to like, this cast doesn't seem to worry about immunities.
They don't, yes.
Like.
They don't seem to, yes, like there's no really challenge that. I think even like when Hunter went out, it wasn't solely based on that necessarily. I think like that was a big part, but there was more to it. It wasn't just like challenge beast. Let's go.
With him, it was the idol and like he could win his way to the end. Like right now, Q is still considered the bigger challenge threat than Maria and Charlie, even though they've both won 2. Like it's shifted less to like you've won a couple, you gotta go, to no, these are the people that we still consider challenge threats.
Yeah, it's the people that could possibly win the last one, I think. I think that's a big part of it. Like, they're not concerned if you win multiple in a row. They're concerned, like, can I beat this person to get to the final 3? Because I honestly think, like, that is one of the biggest, like, having that power in the final 4 is, I mean, it sounds stupid to say the best power you could have in the game because it's the end, but like just more so than ever with the fire making, I think the end is so random. So I think like that's kind of a big thing. Like Q hasn't won anything yet, but the fact that he could win the final one is the scary part.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. It's an interesting shift, and I prefer it. Watching older seasons with some friends and watching their emphasis on like, oh, this person's one of the most dominant players. Like they said, Terry Dietz was one of the most dominant players ever. And like challenge-wise, absolutely. Any other way you want to like look at it, not really at all. And like that, it's just one aspect of the game. And I think, and maybe the strategic aspect and the like making a move aspect is becoming that overemphasized aspect of the game currently. But yeah, it's always frustrating when challenges are like, oh, I've won 3 immunities. And it's like, yeah. So there were 3 times where you didn't have any, like, you didn't have to protect yourself, which is valuable, but it's less impressive to me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Another shift that we have discussed, but we have to continue to discuss, is the meta strategy that has evolved of idle play, and specifically just not playing it.
Freaking play the idol.
last week, I mentioned that we were tied with idols leaving the game in a pocket. We broke the record. We did it.
I just don't get it. When you know that your name is, and I agree. When your name is on the dot, like it is impressive to not play an idol because you know you don't need to. Tony had never played an idol correctly before winners at like one of the best winners we've seen, and Kagayan did not play a single idol correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, like it's fine if you misplay an idol, or if you play it and it doesn't matter, or you never play like it's fine, but just play it when you know that your name is on the chopping block. just to be
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah, and I think this is something we've talked about obviously for weeks now, especially in this new era. Venus had a confessional where she laid it out just straightforward, where she said either you play it correctly or you don't play it at all to show that you didn't have to. And to me, that's crazy. That's the second best thing you can do with an idol is not play it, rather than I don't know, play it to get some votes off you.
She even said like, I play my idol, or don't play it and show that my social game is so good that I didn't need to. Venus, your social game isn't good, sweetheart. Like it's not. Half these people hate you. Like that's and half of them don't want to talk to you about strategy. Like you have to realize that. You have to see that. And so saying that like it shows how great your social game I guess maybe that can be like, oh, it's better than you guys realized it was. Or maybe they're lying to you, or maybe they're trying to get you out. Like think about it a little bit, please. And just play the idol. Worst case scenario, it just gets hidden again and you didn't need it. But and I guess maybe she didn't even know her name was on the chopping block. But Venus, you're not somebody who can hang their hat on their social game, I don't think.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And I think like that's the crazy thing is there's been such emphasis on keeping track of like this person played their idol and it only canceled out 2 votes. Oh no, they wasted it, you know? And I think it's built up to this point where the fact that we've had 4 people this season all have that same logic. And the fact that 3 of them, Hunter and Tiffany, now joined Venus in it all revolving around Q. Q has been the decoy for all 3 of those people as far as like, oh, we think it's going to be him. And so like I think we were saying it last week with Tiffany. It's like how did you fall for this again? How did you fall for Q being the decoy? And now we have another week where someone has an idol, fell for this Q decoy and left the so I think that's the even crazier part, because it's one thing like if you come onto a season like, you know, I have a little more sympathy for like Gem or even maybe Hunter since he was the first one for the Q bluff, I guess we'll call it, where it's like, okay, you're new, you haven't been to a lot of tribal councils, you're feeling out, how do I know? But like for Tiffany and Venus now, it's like you've seen this play out week after week after week, and now it's you. I just don't understand. Other than again, Venus hasn't had the best reads this entire game, so I guess maybe it does make sense.
I think they just don't know how to not play an idol, as I think about it more. Like because Tiffany and Hunter, I think, are the big examples of this. Venus, not as much. It was known, like Hunter, first of all, told people he had an idol right before Tribal and didn't consider that was going to raise his threat level and make people want to take a shot at him. That's insane to me. And now that people know you have an idol, you either say, I'm going to play this idol, I just am, and like make them call your bluff, or you'd actually play it. Like you actually just go for it and not tell anybody. Like a known idol is not valuable in this game. It makes you a threat, and so you want to get rid of it. And Tiffany was talking about that, but yet still chose to just hold on to it. I don't understand why you wouldn't just get rid of it when you could. And then she genuinely wouldn't have gotten voted out, I don't think, if it weren't for the idol. Hunter
Tiffany?
probably would have. Yeah, Tiffany, I don't think would have gotten voted out.
I would even argue the fact that Venus halfway hinted to Charlie that there was something in the game, I don't think that
Yeah.
helped her case. To me that was a turning point that wasn't as emphasized in the edit, so maybe it's not fair to like assume that was part of his reasoning. But like he wasn't very pleased with the fact that she wasn't telling him all the information there. So like I
She
I
just
would almost count her in that grouping of like, yeah, you told someone too much about what you have.
that just showed so much of like I can see what she's doing. I can see the idea of being like, hey, if this goes through and if you show that like we can work together and we can trust each other in this situation, I have something that I want to share with you. But I don't want to tell you now because I don't know if you're actually in Maria's pocket. You can even say, I know who has the idol. You can say something like that, but I won't tell you until I know that I can trust you and you play with me. That makes so much more sense. But she's doing this cryptic like there might be an advantage. No, there's not an advantage. I was just kidding. There I don't know. I don't know where anything is. And then like trying to play coy and trying to say that and not just being direct with him like, "Hey, I know that you want to work with Ben and Maria. I know that you've been working with them. I want to make sure I can trust you, so I want to see you vote with me."
Yeah. Yeah, I think clearly there's better options than what she chose to do. But I also wonder, like, do you think there was anyone she could have told about her idol? Because I do think she was mostly correct in the assumption, like, she can't tell anyone. Because I think that's,
Oh
like, the
no.
bummer. Like, with her position in the game, there was no outcome where she could have used this for more social gain. And I think that's kind of the tragic part about her position.
The only person in this entire game that she could have found an idol and told about it is Randon. Genuinely, that's what I believe. And he was hurt the first day or whatever and had to leave. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, she just has not had the social game or had anybody close enough where if Charlie found an idol, he could tell Maria and she would keep it to herself for a while. She might tell somebody later on, but she would keep it to herself. Like, I feel like a lot of these people have someone that they could tell and they would keep it quiet. Actually, that might be the only duo that they would just keep it between the two of them.
Yeah, probably.
Because Kenzie's going to use it. Liz is probably going to use it. Q might not tell people just because no one listens to him.
I'm very curious
Tavius.
because now nobody knew that she had an idol. Like, do they go out and keep looking this next week? Or do they assume someone found it? You know, I don't know because like with Tiffany's, it was very much known. Because even Hunter, they weren't even 100% sure that that was real. Tiffany's was the only reason, which I think is why they all started looking after that. So I'm curious to see, because again we have had one advantage played this entire season, and that was Maria's extra vote. There have been no idols, no other extra votes, no losing votes that have been relevant. Again, I mentioned last week 3 people have lost votes, but it didn't actually affect the outcome or really matter. So it's just extremely bizarre that in this new era with all these twists and advantages that they are not a factor to this game at all. Other than, I
When was
guess,
the
like,
last time-
having a idol is affecting the game, but what are you saying?
I guess we saw Julie's work last year. I was like, when was the last time we even saw an idol work? And so I guess we did last year, or last season rather. But
Work is an interesting question. Yeah, Julie's work last season. I think that was probably the last one.
like if you're not going to use it for the reason it's meant to be used, don't have it. I don't know. I don't like this culture of like never playing idols. I would just play them. Pull a Russell or a Ben. Just play them and hope that you'll find another one.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to see if there's an easy way to see all that. Oh, there's kind of a way to... Wait, why did Katura play an idol after Julie? I'm seeing her name crossed off in the vote. So I'm assuming that's what that means. But I don't remember exactly. Either way, it doesn't seem to affect it because she only had 1 vote against her. Anyways, yes, I agree. I don't like this we can't play our idols.
That was the weird 2-1-1. Oh, that was a weird vote.
That was a weird vote. That's all I remember. It was it was tough. We analyzed that for a long time of who messed up and what happened.
And then it turns out they just all messed up.
They all
Somehow.
yes, they all voted for like so okay, I don't know if this is hot take. The more I think about it, I don't know if I loved last season. Is that a hot take? I feel like that's a hot take cuz people seem to really still enjoy it.
I mean, I would argue it had the most satisfying winner of the new era
Yes,
for me.
I think
I think I'm a little biased.
I think outside of that, the more I think about it, I'm like, I didn't like this season to me is so much better.
Jake
Even if we
played his
don't have
idol
a-
for Katura. That's what it was.
That is what happened, yes.
He thought
But
he was
then-
being smart. He was like, "What? What do you mean?" He's like, "Why didn't you just tell me you had an idol?"
That's right, because
was
he
the whole
didn't he
thing.
didn't include her because he wanted this big move on his own, and then if he
Mhm.
would have told her, she would have voted a different way, and then they would have got D out. That's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because people were mad at her. He was mad at her for not voting with him, but she's like, you didn't include me in all the steps of your plan. Similar to Venus, like just
Mm-hmm.
if you can't go half in like that.
Yeah, it looks like each season has a like correctly played idol except for this one.
And we might not. I
It's so little time. It would be surprised. Well, maybe they'd actually play it because there's so little time.
but that's the thing is the fact that taking an idol to the end with you and not playing it as seen as a strategic move in previous seasons, Jeff would be like, okay, this is your last night to play advantages. They would do it as like, well, I don't need this, but it's the last night, so I'll play it. That isn't going to happen in the new era. So I think like that's the thing.
When did this shift happen? Like, what player did this
I
that
think it
impressed
was.
everybody so much?
I don't think it impressed them, but I mean, if we're talking new era, it was Xander in 41 because he did that. It didn't work for him because he didn't win, obviously, but he did have an idol at the end, and that was like one of his big resume things. Is like, look at this, I have this. I didn't need it, but I have it here. So I don't know if you can count that because again, he like historically got 0 votes of that
Mhm.
tribal. But like that was the first time where I remember us talking and being like, "That's very interesting that he tried to do that, or that he used that as a resume." And I don't know if like there was probably another person or two that like talked about that or maybe tried to do it, but like that to me like that was the first time I realized like, wait a minute, that is an option. Like that's the thing that you could use to say how strategic you were because. To me, it still doesn't completely add up, if I'm being honest.
I feel like I remember Tony having a couple idols that he'd never played at the end of Kagayan. That like
Did he?
at least had the
Oh.
super idol that he never played. And so maybe they show that season and show that like value, and so because you got to think they give them a season to watch to like get the hang of the game a little, but they have to show them new era, I would assume currently. I don't know. I don't think it makes sense. I think it's more valuable to stay in the game than at that point, especially with Venus knowing that you're on the chopping block.
Well,
It just
hear
is.
me out. The logic that, like, I had this and didn't need it, wouldn't that still apply if you played incorrectly? Let's say you play it, you eliminate 1 or 2 votes against you. You didn't need to play it, but you did. Isn't the logic still there at the end? You get to the end, you say, hey, I used this idol, but turns out I didn't need it because my social game was so strong. I don't think it's that different.
Yeah, but it doesn't show the like maybe the risk of it.
Or the trust
Like,
in your
oh.
own social game.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. You know what? I don't think it's anything. I don't think this matters that much at all because we've never seen it affect a vote at the end. The one example we have right now off the top of our heads is Xander, which didn't work. They were just like, yeah, you just sucked. That's it wasn't
Well,
that you were really great.
With that line of thinking, couldn't you say the same thing about like immunity challenges? Like if you could just throw every immunity challenge and be like, look it, I purposely bowed out of every single one because I didn't need it. Like, you're looking at the people who tried to win as people that aren't taking risks. To me, it's very similar. And so, again,
Absolutely.
if Q is being honest about throwing these challenges, that's the same type of thinking as not needing to play an idol, as not needing to win these challenges. So I don't know. To me, it's like, I think you can take a risk, but also still try to be safe. I don't know if it completely cancels out.
Maybe it was Venus's hope to save her social game because she's seen as one of the weaker social players, and I think she knows that by everybody else. And so she was like, "Oh, maybe if I don't have to play an idol, that will like win me some brownie points with some of these people." Maybe.
I think that's fair. Like, she recognizes that she needs something tangible to show her social game because no one's going to
Mhm.
believe it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, it's whatever. Okay. Enough idle talk. Who else do you want to talk about? I feel like there's a couple people we haven't really talked about. We hit most of it.
I'm over listening to Liz complain about the same stuff and be like, I never complained, so I'm gonna complain now. It was fun last episode. This episode, I was like, well, you mean nothing to the decision that was made in this episode, so shut up.
I think I kind of appreciate it only because I do think we need someone continuing to call Q out. That's just
Yeah.
And I think, like I mentioned, like Ben and Maria, they're like way too good at the game to let these fun moments happen. Like, they're never gonna emotionally show their cards like that, you know. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's annoying, but there's something about like her hating Q with a passion and him
Mhm.
just still there every single week, and her voting to keep him in every week despite it's the exact chaos of why I love this season.
That's fair. It's just when Jeff was like, Liz, take it away. Tell us why you hate Q this week. And I was just like, frick, like, come on. I don't need to hear this. And then seeing her sleeping at camp while everybody else was searching, to be fair, that might have been a misrepresentation of how the day was going on. She might have been looking for hours and was just finally taking a break. But still, I was like, get out of here.
Here's the thing: she doesn't need to do anything though. Like, what? I like. She doesn't need an idol. She doesn't need to withhold her feelings about. Like, I think she's just skating to the end at this point.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
at what point do you make a move on her?
Well, she's already made her big move. She made her big move when she got out Tim? No, Soda.
Soda,
Yeah, Soda was her big move.
You're right. Despite everyone else taking credit before her, but you know. Yeah, no, Liz, I mean, is Liz bottom of the people that can win this game? Maybe. Probably her or
Ben's
Ben,
down
right?
there.
Yeah.
I don't. Ben hasn't really done anything for me.
Have you warmed up to the Q winner edit at all? Because I'm still
No.
riding that right now. I'm riding it hard.
I think it's possible. I think people are gonna be mad if he wins,
They're gonna be
especially in that
furious.
Facebook group. I was talking to some friends, and I was like, "Oh, what'd you think?" And they hadn't seen the Tiffany episode yet. And she said she was like, she doesn't like the season because Hunter got voted out, and she doesn't really like anybody else. And I was just like,
I know your
man,
people. I have a
do
place for
we
you.
have opposite opinions of who should be good in this game? I was like, I don't know what. I didn't say this, but I was like, I don't even know what to say. Like, Hunter was the least interesting person in the game at that point. He was just good at challenges, and other than that, he was incredibly boring. So I didn't know what to say. So I was just like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. It's my favorite sentiment in that group, because like once, you know, season 50 was announced and everything,
Mm-hmm.
they're all like, oh, wouldn't it be great to just have like a season of all just challenge beasts, like people that actually want to survive, not just backstab and lie. And I think a lot of people are just watching the wrong show. Like, there are plenty of
Yeah.
Survivor shows out there. You know, you could watch the Bear Grill shows. You could watch Naked or Afraid. You could watch. There's so many shows of people just, I don't know, of men doing Survivor things. I think that's what they want. They just want.
Yeah, but they don't.
The
They don't do
archetype.
challenges in those. They just survive. Like, they want to survive and then also compete for nothing and then survive for a little bit longer.
Right. Like,
They want Bear Grylls does the challenge. That's what they want.
yeah. I mean, even the challenge would be too political for them.
Oh yeah,
as
that's
far
why
as
Bear
far as
Grylls
social
takes up the
strategy goes,
politics.
because like, you're watching the wrong show. That's all it is. You know, like Survivor's a show about lying. I'm sorry, Hunter's not good at lying or strategy. Like that's just how it is.
And to be fair, there's been times where things have bothered me about the show, and then like Jeff says to Russell, like you're watching the wrong show. Like it's just everybody wants it to be something that it's not. I feel like nobody's like this is perfect where it's at, and that's kind of the fun of the game is you can look for different things and have different opinions.
Yeah, that's why like my new revelation that I've had the past few years that has brought me so much peace is just realizing that this is a game about winning votes. That's literally all it is. How do you
It's
get those
genuinely
votes?
helped me too.
It doesn't matter. And
Mm-hmm.
every season is different. So it's just like, which makes it incredibly frustrating sometimes to like compare players or seasons or winners because it's like even when we're ranking winners that we've done previously, like that's actually impossible because every season is so different. And if you place this person in this season, they might not win. They could be a bad winner. They could be the best winner. Like the way that people vote for the winner is so diverse. And unfortunately, I think people want a more clear cut. This is what makes you a good player, and that just doesn't exist in a show like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was watching, or my friends were watching Samoa, so Russell's first season, and they finished it, and they were starting to text me a bunch of takes, and I was like, this is a season we need to talk about in person. Like this isn't a quick chat about Samoa, and
Yep.
they were very much like, yeah, Russell sucks. They were more surprised that Mick didn't win, which I remember Mick being a nothing player that whole season. But yeah, it's interesting. It's just
Take
so
I haven't
interesting how
really heard a
different
lot
people
of.
perceive it. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
like Natalie didn't do anything, and I was like, she did one thing.
Like, yeah, but that's why
Dang,
she
Adam.
won. That's why
has
she
a big
won.
move. Yeah, she has two big moves.
All right. Anything else on this season?
I think that's all I got. I'm having fun. This end game is still fun. The only way I'll be disappointed is if Ben or Liz win.
I would agree with that. I think anyone else would be satisfying.
Even Kenzie would have to show me something.
Yeah, Kenzie has slipped a little bit. She had those episodes. She had some episodes where she was front and center, and now I'm like, oh, I don't know. I think it's possible though. I do wonder if we're gonna reach a point where, if Q and Maria aren't in the end. I mean, it feels like Charlie. It feels like either Charlie, Maria, or Q will be in the final three. Like one of them, right? It doesn't feel like we could possibly get a final three of Ben, Kenzie, or Liz. So it's gonna be really hard for one of the three of them to not win. I think.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if one of them wins at Fire. That's my saving grace in my head.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Charles beats one of them at Fire.
There's no way he hasn't practiced forever. Like,
Oh, for sure not.
that guy's ready for Fire.
He's been practicing his grip strength for 2 years.
Yeah.
For one challenge.
Which I do love. I will say, okay, here's my
Makes
take.
me want to get little
I didn't-
grabbers and work on it.
Well, okay, I don't think I mentioned this last week. I so prefer that to memorizing puzzles where we've seen other people do. I think that is far more impressive to like physically train for a specific task rather than to be like, oh, I wrote down all the puzzles that Survivor does and memorized them. I don't know, because I think like that's been like the meta is like where now they have to do new puzzles. But like for Charlie to be like, I recognize that this specific part of my body needs to strengthen, so I'm gonna do that. Like I think that's so much better.
Feels like you're just against Carson.
I don't like Carson. That is true. But
Oh, really? I didn't know that was where you landed. I love Carson.
oh, I can't stand him. Have you seen the beef with him on Twitter?
Yeah, I don't care about that. I love
Dude,
Carson.
he's out. No man, I can't stop. I never liked him. I'll say that, but
Oh, really?
now I really don't.
All
I'm
right.
done. I'm out.
I like him.
That's
If they're gonna keep reusing puzzles, I am so okay with you memorizing puzzles. Like that's so fine with for me.
it's just it's boring. I think that's because
Yeah.
that I
That's
think-
Survivor's fault more than his.
it
to me,
is Survivor's
100%.
fault, but I think that doesn't make you an exciting player. The fact that you hacked I don't know, like
Exciting doesn't like necessarily like not exciting doesn't mean bad though. Like I still think he's a good player.
Sure. I don't want good
He also
players.
packed on
I
like 30
want
pounds of muscle in like 6 months, which is insane.
I want chaotic players. I want Venus and Q. Those are my players. Those are my
All right.
people.
All
That's
right,
that's
hey.
how we're going
Teach
with it.
their own. I love Carson. He's never done any wrong to me, personally, and so I like him.
Unfortunately, you probably won't see him play again after all this.
Really?
That's-
Is it just the stuff of like him creating his own business and like kind of stealing people's business model stuff, or what? What did I miss?
So there's that,
this-
but then there's also the whole podcast thing where him and Carolyn tried to start a Survivor podcast, but they went against like their NDA with CBS. So they after one episode they got told to shut down. So the rumor is that him and Jeff have been kind of feuding a little because he's basically
Oh.
I don't know what the exact rules are, but like I don't know. Like those two examples of him trying to like profit off of what, I don't know, like leeching off of I guess other people's properties or businesses, I suppose. That's kind of like the
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know the exact like the wording of their contract, but like him and Carolyn were pretty much like cease and desist, like stop, you can't have a podcast right now about our show.
But everybody still likes Carolyn.
Not so much because I think not they don't dislike her. Again, I'm speaking on behalf of like the massive Survivor, which I shouldn't be, but I think like she's not the one that's like doing it. I think people don't like her right now because she's defending Carson, but she's not the one like doing the things. So I think there's a little more grace for her there. Yeah, Kelly Wentworth has been like very like she had a whole like TikTok live with the original like puzzle business people like talking about it. So like a lot of the Survivor alumni are like very vocal about like what he's doing, and so it's like it's not just like the fans, it's also like the Survivor players, and then also like CBS now with their podcast thing. So I think there's an almost 0% chance he gets invited back at this point.
He's that's annoying. I like him.
He's a bad
I feel
person. I don't
like-
know what to tell you.
I don't even know if that's true. Like I don't know. I feel like he's super young, and so he might just be doing dumb things just because I don't know. Maybe I'm just giving him too much credit. But there could be an aspect of that, and then he's just blacklisted because he's young and dumb and thinks he can get away with things that he can't. But
I think I would have given him more grace if he didn't the same day that that puzzle story broke out. He started tweeting promo codes for his business. I think that was a little tough. That was a little like, this is. I think you know what you're doing, but I could be wrong. I don't know him. All right, well,
I'll
that's
take him.
enough.
Screw everybody else.
For more episodes of us covering this season, visit notgameonpersonal.com. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at NGAPpod. That's at NGAPpod. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else to podcasts. I'm Nathan. This is Tony. We will see you next week.
12 seasons, 2 pals, 1 podcast.